All right, so we've got a treat for you today. My name is Nathan. I'm one of your ministers. Welcome to your Wednesday kind of update. Don't get scared off when you look at the number and see how long this video is. I'm going to tell you a little of what is going on. And it's mostly not me who's going to be talking. So last Sunday, I want to make this a little evergreen. So Sunday the 28th, we did a service on being raised Unitarian Universalists. What does it feel like to be raised UU? And I reached out to 5 church members who were raised Unitarian Universalist, and I asked them to tell me their stories. And did they tell their stories? I mean, I'm talking like, I got like an hour and something worth of stuff from them that I had to trim out into making it fit the service. So if you want to see that service, if you haven't seen it yet, go watch the service on August 28th. But what you're going to see today is the raw footage from one of the 5. I have only reached out to one person. So if the other 4 say I can show it, I'm going to put these at the end of some of the videos. But today, you're going to hear from Beverly Wilson. She has been a member of this church since she was 16 years old. She is in her 70s now. I think she says it in the video. And she was at every building that this church was ever in. So what we did is I reached out to her and I asked her if she'd be willing to talk, and she said sure. And I said, would it be easier, instead of just putting your phone down and recording, to come into my office and for me to record you? And she said yes. And so she had you could tell, had thought about what she wanted to say. And so for the first chunk, it's kind of her saying the thing that she probably would have preached if she was invited, if she had been in the pulpit. And then I wanted to make sure I had enough rich content. So I started kind of peppering her with questions. And so you'll hear me, I have the phone. She's looking at the phone, my cell phone, which is clipped using like these little, using some of these, clipped onto my laptop, sitting on top of some books and a Kleenex box. And I was sitting behind her, so here. And I would just ask her some questions about, to try to provoke some answers that I could maybe get some good content to use. So you're going to hear me some, and also Melanie Borick, who also you heard from on the 28th, was there. And she sat next to Beverly and kind of supported her on. And we did the same thing where Beverly and her switched. The only edits that I made to this were anytime she talked about her family in some way that I feel like her family didn't consent to, I removed. So there's some kind of raw cuts, but she didn't intend for that maybe to be there anyway. It's nothing salacious per se. It's just not. It's not their story. It's a story that you would tell one-on-one, but maybe not be a story you want on the internet. So I'd recommend watch the whole thing if you'd like. If it was me, I'd put on some headphones, do some dishes, cook, go on a walk, just whatever you need to just listen. I mean, it's a really cool deep dive into this church's history and the experience of growing up UU, and to hear from one of your more senior members in this church and someone who was here for much of the history of this congregation. That's it for today. This upcoming Sunday, just to let you know what's coming up, and then I'll hand it over to you, Beverly. This Sunday, I'm preaching on what Unitarian Universalism is now, the new UUs, the new us, if you want to do a little wordplay. And we're also doing our blood drive. Oh, this is what I did. Definitely intentionally. Beverly helps coordinate the blood drive. She'll be here on Sunday. And so we had her do this one so that she could cross-promote the blood drive. That's definitely what I was thinking, and I didn't realize it just now. But the blood drive this weekend, and then Reverend Chris will be the following Sunday. There's a lot of great stuff coming up in this church. So, without further ado, I turn it over to Beverly. Take it away. I'm going to do the recording thing just like with her. So
Okay.
But say who you are.
Okay. I'm Beverly Wilson, and I have been a Unitarian all of my life that is old enough to remember, because my dad started taking me to the Unitarian Church in Richmond, Virginia when I was 6 years old. We moved to Baton Rouge when I was 10. And so I have been a part of this fellowship and then this church on its journey for 68 years. So I'm 78 now, so I've been here since I was 10 years old. And I remember, I need to pause maybe a bit, but I remember many of the very early church buildings that we went to as we were sort of moving on the path of trying to begin to get to our own church, because we started off very, very small. In my Sunday schools, I don't remember ever more than 10 kids in my Sunday school class, which meant all of high school or all of middle school or all of elementary school. And when there are only 6 or 8 people and one of them's your brother, that doesn't really count. But we were at a hotel downtown. It was the old Heidelberg. And then we moved to the old state capitol.
Wait, let's go one by one. Heidelberg. What did y'all learn?
I don't remember. I was maybe 10 years old. And I just vaguely remember going into this hotel, and that's where we had church. A lot of it, I don't remember details. I just remember little moments. And I may even get them in the wrong order. But we went from there to the old state capitol. And what I remember there is climbing up around the stained glass windows in the top, and sort of as kids being able to just sort of run wild as other things were going. I know we had classes, but I don't really remember it. Probably of all the places, my clearest memory is when we went to the YWCO. And part of it is actual memory, part of it is shared memory with hearing the stories as well over the years. And that was that we had a small group. We met in their sort of living room area. And if you know, YWCO means Young Women's Christian Organization. It's not the YWCA. And I remember playing games in the yard. My brother remembers playing croquet there. We drank coffee from demi-tasse cups and ate little donut holes and just enjoyed each other's company. But I also remember, and it's more of a collective memory than me personally, but I remember that we always had interracial gatherings, and I was very comfortable with that. And I remember that there was one Sunday when a group of men came, and I don't remember what their actual name was. I always think of it as the Knights of the White Camellia. But they came, and very shortly after that, we were asked to leave the YWCO because they realized we were having integrated meetings at their church. So we went from there to a Struma trade school out on North Acadian. And I remember being in all these big industrial rooms where they would build stuff, and we would have our Sunday school classes and stuff. And at that point, we were able to, I was a kid, we were able to save up some money, and we bought a building on Government Street, which was sort of almost downtown. And my brother and I both talk about remembering to help clean it up, to help paint it as kids. All the Sunday school kids, as well as the parents and everybody, took very much a feeling that the building belonged to us. And I remember playing on the fire escapes and all that. Well, not too long after that, the interstate came through and bought the building. And I, as an adult, have since realized that the taking of that building also took the area of what's called South Baton Rouge. That was the black neighborhood, and it was a really good neighborhood, but they put the interstate through that. And I've looked at what's happened in Tulsa. You know, I won't go into all that because I know that's not what you're saying, but it was the racial business of destroying black areas in order to not disturb the white
ones. Was the church kind of in the black area?
It was right down, yeah. It's down where, sort of, well, it's where Interstate 10 goes through. Mm-hmm. So it was right on the edge of the black area, and it goes through that black area. Yeah, we weren't aware, I mean, as a kid, I wasn't so much aware that it was a black area, but I knew we were integrated, and that's something I've always felt comfortable with. So, what, as the church, though, that was a very positive thing that happened, because the adults in their wisdom chose to bank that money and let it grow. And we rented a building further out on Government. It's where Government and Jefferson joined. They're now putting a subdivision or something there. But it was an old house, and the back house was the Sunday school, except for by then I was a high school kid, so we met in the front. And so the big area would be where the adults had their classes, and some of the other classrooms were where we met. And I remember it was a family situation of needing to help mow the lawn. You know, you had your weekend of taking care of the church and helping with spaghetti dinners. I remember with the cleaning up of the building, that's when I got poison ivy on my arm so bad I had to wear my arm in a sling for a couple of weeks, but I figured I'd earned it for the church. Anyway, so we were there for a while. My mama was one of the RE directors and Sunday school teachers back in the back where my younger siblings were in Sunday school and stuff. And I remember the names of a lot of those ladies that were the Sunday school teachers. And
who was your favorite Sunday school teacher?
That I refuse to answer that, just like I would not let my students. I taught school for almost 50 years, and I don't settle for a favorite teacher or a favorite kid.
Is there one
Each
who
person.
stood out?
Well, of course, I had Mel Dakin, who was a law professor at LSU. I had Charles Yost, who was another professor. I had, Marge Belt, which a lot of y'all will remember her. And just different people like that all are deceased, so nobody would even know the names and stuff. But anyway, so while we were there, we were saving our money, and then this lot on Goodwood became available. And Paige Acree and my daddy and Mel Dakin and Charles Yost went together, and I don't know how, but they were in on the banking and whatever, and they bought the land, and they waited a while. We didn't move on it immediately because they were thinking about how to build the building, one, that we could afford, and two, that we could expand, because our whole goal all those years was to be there, to be for other Unitarian Universalists. So,
what was it like for you, and what school did you go to?
I went to Glasgow Middle School and to Lehigh, which is now Liberty High, and I talked with Nathan the other day and was saying that one of the hard things for me, and it sometimes still is how to verbalize to other people what my religious beliefs were. And I remember it particularly in high school that the other students were virtually all Catholics. There were some Methodists and there were some other denominations, but they'd ask me that, and I would be trying to define, and I kept thinking as a kid, if only I were Catholic, I'd have all the answers and I'd know what to say to people when they asked. But other than that, I had no question about being a Unitarian. So when I went off to college in Lafayette, there was a very, very small, we were small, but there was a very, very small Unitarian church in Lafayette, fellowship really. And I taught Sunday school there. I was a member of the Methodist youth group because that gave me a social outlet, but I did teach Sunday school over there.
So going back to the high school question, did you feel like an outcast, or did you just feel like you knew something they didn't know?
It's hard to say back that many years, and I've taught high school for so many years that it's hard to remember specifically on mine. But I think it was only when I was being questioned and I couldn't readily answer the other kids as to what I was feeling, that I wished I was something else. I never really wanted to be any of the other religions for the religious answers. And my parents were both attending the Unitarian Church. My daddy was very much Unitarian. My mother was attending because my daddy did. Anyway, so I just remember there were 5 of us kids, and we were all in Sunday school. Then as an adult, I had my kids in Sunday school here. My current spouse had children in the Sunday school here as we were growing up, as they were growing up. But one of the things that I feel that really that happened in my life that I feel is a result of my growing up Unitarian is that I was in college in the early 60s. And I, at USL at the time, intentionally chose to live in the first integrated dorm over here. I helped form the Human Relations Council on the USL campus, and I remember doing some sit-ins. And one of the stories my son tells is that when he was in first or second grade, I don't remember now, but he had a young friend, and he wanted to go to the friend's house. And I said, of course. Well, the friend was a young black boy who lived in a different type of neighborhood. But I just said, of course, took him to the house, and he spent the time. And so my son said that has meant so much to him in his whole life. And my daughter grew up when we were in the military, and that was so integrated that they take it as natural rather than as something that's exceptional. So
do you think growing up in our church helped you be more comfortable in an integrated life?
Absolutely.
Say
because
it as a statement.
Growing up in this church made me very cognizant of that all people are special and have a specialness about them, and it doesn't matter what they look like, who they are, why, or whatever, that they are. And
what did the church smell like when you were a kid?
The problem is I can't pick one church.
All right, well, let's go through them.
I don't have a sense of smell memory, and I know with my art students we used to talk about, how does your grandmother's house smell, and what kind of things do you remember? But I don't have a real strong memory with that.
Why did you never leave Unitarianism?
Because it was home. It felt right. I really feel an all-inclusiveness. I feel an all-inclusiveness that the Unitarian Church encompasses everything and everybody, and that there are many paths to feeling a part of the universe and the world. And I'll tell you truthfully, I was an art educator, and I've always felt that my art was my vehicle for passing my religion and my religious beliefs on. It was not instead of, it was sort of because of. In fact, on my office door, I had the little circle with a circle to shut you out, but I use the circle to pull everybody in. And it's just, and I still try to do that with students and with people, that love is the answer.
Yeah. What questions do you have? I'm going to look and make sure I'm recording. Good. Keep going. Yeah.
Excuse me just a second. I know you'll cut this part.
Yeah. I mean, we got 30 minutes of content right here, so I'm not like, I gotta cut it.
Yeah.
Did you go to conferences or rallies?
Oh,
I was, you and I talked about that the other day. One of my fond memories of when I was in high school, and I think it was 16, but I won't swear to it. But this is my memory, whether it's correct or not. But one summer they were having the Southwest Conference meeting, which they did every summer at the Lake Texoma in Oklahoma, which was the gathering of all Unitarians in the area. And so Louise Salisbury and Frances McManus were senior members who actually, they seemed old then, but for now, they're younger than I am now. But they were going, and they invited me to go with them. And so I went for the week conference, and it was just so awe-inspiring to see all of these Unitarians there. I'd never been around more than 20 or 30 adults and a dozen kids or so in the church. And so we spent the whole week singing songs, doing camp things, bonding as a group of other kids who were like me. And so it was really special to realize that other people thought and felt like I did. And so when I came back to the church, I did two things. One, I found one of the adult ladies and I said, will you help us? And I got her to help me organize the first LRY group, the Liberal Religious Youth. And so we had recreational, if you call it that, youth group started. It was more than just the Sunday school classes. The second thing is I went to the board and I said, would you please change the bylaws so that a 16-year-old can join the church? So I joined, they changed the bylaws and I joined the church when I was 16. And with my first husband, I was away a lot of time when he was in the military. I have not been physically present some of the time, but I have never dropped my membership. I have never dropped my paying the money because I believe we need to pass this on to the next generation, that it's very important that we continue on this path. I agree. It seems like, I know there was another thing that I wanted to say about that. So when I was in high school, the guy that I started dating, and by the end of college, I ended up marrying him. We were one of the first weddings in this church, and our honeymoon was going to Lake Texoma. He was going off to Meadville Theological School to train as a Unitarian minister. So our honeymoon was going to Lake Texoma, where he was one of the presenters, and we shared that whole event with Unitarians.
How did y'all meet?
High school.
In this church? Or?
No. We were at Lee High School. In fact, we were on a bus going to the state playoffs for the football game, and he was in the seat behind me with one of my friends. He had a date. He had just moved up from New Orleans, and I do think he went to Reverend Orlando's church for a bit. So he had heard of Unitarianism and stuff, and then I guess just sort of over our dating, he started coming here. He ended up being on we were members for a long time. He was even a member before we actually married. And he ended up, when we came back from the military, being on one of the search committees for bringing in a new minister.
He never became a minister.
But no, he got disillusioned.
No.
He was up, we were up there, and I think it was not as idealistic as he thought. And so it was during the Vietnam buildup. And so he either stayed in theological school or he went into the Air Force. So he chose at that point, when he just did not feel that this was, quote, the calling, he decided to go into the Air Force as an officer. So I was teaching school in Chicago at the time, teaching art, my first
so this is in Hyde Park.
Yeah, it was in Hyde Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lived in...
It looked like a Harry Potter kind of building.
Oh, yes.
It's gone now, but
yeah, it was
like the library has like dangly lights. It was
yeah, and the apartment we lived in was abominable. But we went up. We were on like the third floor, and we couldn't afford curtains. And so I cut snowflakes and stapled them on strings and hung them as our curtains.
Was
So
this on campus or was this?
it was right there, 16 Kenmore or something like that. I can't remember the exact date, but it was very. I mean, he walked to campus. I walked to the IC Railroad and taught down in South Chicago. The wonderful thing was that I guess it was a semester and a half. I don't remember exactly how long we were up there, whether it was 1 or 2 years. It's a little bit hazy. But it was being around the other ministers and their wives, and I remember them helping us as young people to handle Thanksgiving, because it was the first time we had been away from home for all that, and all the beautiful churches that we went to up there, and just being a part of that was really a special feeling. But, you know, it was his place to decide whether he wanted to be a Unitarian minister or not.
Do you remember hymns you used to sing as a kid?
Oh, yeah, but I can't just name them now. But so many of the songs, I just still sing them, or they'll come into my head. Just like the songs y'all were singing last Sunday, I just find them waking up at night and they're just tripping through my head. So yes, and my sister, who's 10 years younger than I am, was a piano major. And so when I was RE director, I would always have a little worship service with a chalice and everything for the kids. And she played the piano for me, and we would sing all those old songs, so that when the kids would go into the big service, which was periodic, then they would know the songs.
Was there a song you liked to play for them the most? Like, what did you want them to learn to sing?
Morning so fair to see, night veiled in mystery, and I don't remember. I just am not real good at that.
Yeah.
I'm more of a visual than an audio or a olfactory person.
All right, I'm going to take you off with it. Is there any